Skybound is the 6th installment within LEGO Ninjago, releasing in 2016 and has become one of the most divisive seasons we've ever seen over the course of the show's history. And I'm going to be brutally honest when I say this, I have not wanted to talk about Skybound. On my channel, I have been doing a retrospective on every single Ninjago season and looking back at it with my modern eye, and I have genuinely avoided the Skybound video for about 3 months now. And honestly, it's really scary to think about how long I've spent just putting it off, but I feel like it's about time because I feel like I actually know what I want to say about it. Because this season truly is an extremely big mixed bag. There are things in this season that I think are really good, but there are also things in this season that I absolutely hate. I honestly don't know how to quantify my feelings about this season, so I just avoid it. But in today's video, I'm going to try my best to actually articulate how I feel about this season. There is so much I do want to say about it, so I'm not entirely certain how long this video is going to be, but regardless of that, sit back, relax, and get comfortable, because we're going to go into it, and we're going to talk about how Skybound is truly a divisive mess. But before I get into the specifics, I'm going to do what I do with every single season and read off the official synopsis. It goes as such. With the defeat of Moro's ghost invasion, the ninja have now become huge media celebrities, but dark forces once more threaten Ninjago Island as the Teapot of Tyran is rediscovered by the ghost of Klaus, Master Chen's former right-hand man. He allows Narukon, an evil djinn and a captain of the infamous Misfortune's Keep, to escape the Teapot. After reassembling his pirate crew, Narukon returns to his home realm of Ninjago to find it collapsing. This destruction, caused by the ninja defeating the Preeminent, leads Narukon to vow revenge. He refits his ship so he can fly and prepares to attack. Now they are sky pirates. And I will say immediately, I like this concept. I think they actually did have something good going in here. It shows the consequence of Season 5, it shows how destroying a realm can truly have that kind of consequence, and I like the general setup to Narukon. I like the fact that it's Klaus who released him as well, because it is shown that he's trying to break out of the Preeminent in Season 5. That is a very nice bit of foreshadowing, and definitely is appreciated. And like I said, it does feel like Narukon's intentions are genuine here. I like the fact that he was just willing to go home by the apparent look, but just simply wanted revenge because of a destruction that wasn't anywhere related to him. I genuinely kind of like this. I didn't think there was an issue with it at the time, and I don't see an issue with it now. But obviously that was before I watched the episodes. But I am actually going to start with the positives when it does come to Skybound. I feel like saving the negativity till the end is probably the better approach. So the first thing I want to talk about is just simply how good this season actually looked. In terms of the Will film era, apart from the Oni trilogy because they switched vendors, this is definitely the best Ninjago looked within that classic time. This season is just distinctly beautiful. There is a very distinct vibrant tone to it. That orange overlay that we get to see throughout the course of the season is amazing looking, and I just think that the season genuinely does accomplish a nice visually appealing looking theme. Of course, we are now within modern Ninjago where Season 4 Part 1 exists, but the thing is that for the time, this was pretty good, and I would honestly argue it holds up to this very day. Ninjago itself was just very beautiful looking. The oceans, the weather effects, they genuinely did accomplish something pretty good here. This season consistently is just very nice to actually look at. I think it's honestly not complimented enough. And it is a shame that it went downhill after the events of Hands of Time, but honestly, it is fine. I do wish Hands of Time did look like Skybound though, not in the orange sense, just more in the sense of it just looked very clean. But with animation and visual also comes audio, and audio is absolutely amazing within this season as well. For one, all of the new themes that we got were just amazing. Any sort of sky pirate related theme was fantastic. I love the sounds of djinns themselves, Narukon teleporting around, him using the sword. I think honestly all of it was just amazing, and the pirate whip is a definite add-on as well. It is one of my personal favourite whips and definitely has earned its spot amongst my personal favourites. So honestly, on the audio and visual scale, they just really accomplished a lot here. I feel like it's just something that needs a lot more attention and just a lot more appreciation in general. But that was the last instance of me being entirely positive. So let's talk about the ninja. The ninja were very interesting this time around. This was one of the first instances where they really did toy with the smaller cast concept. Whilst we have had seasons that have done it before, like Tournament of Elements, we still got to see other ninja within B-plots. But ninja were basically taken out of the story this time round. For some a lot more than others, but still I digress. But that is only one aspect. The ninja had a lot of things different this time round, and in a lot of cases, just characters feeling weirdly off. One of the biggest and original hooks of the season itself is the fact that, like I said, the ninja are now famous, and we get to see them explore famous life. We get to see how they interact, we get to see who's more for it, who's less for it. It's definitely an interesting concept, and one I'm shocked they never really went back to. But the famous stuff wasn't really all that long lasting, but it's because it was replaced by an even more divisive arc, and that is going to be the prison arc. And this is definitely something that a lot of people have questioned over the course of time. A lot of people question the fact that everyone just basically turned their backs against the ninja for seemingly no reason. Ninjago is no stranger to beings that could manipulate their shape and their form, and they have no reason to just immediately believe that the ninja were doing these things. It definitely did feel very forced out just to move on the plot, and is honestly just kind of a shame to see, but regardless of that, it definitely does leave a very sour taste in our mouths. You can always tell when something is divisive just based on the comparisons that people give. A very common comparison piece to the Skybound prison arc is the crystallized prison arc, because people cite that crystallized did it correctly. Of course, we're talking about the first half of crystallized, which is a lot more positively received, but it's still really funny that people are citing crystallized of all seasons as the foundation for what makes a good prison arc. I think that kind of just tells you everything you need to know. I will say personally for me, I do think the prison arc was just a bit strange because of how they got there, and how they end up learning things also feels very strange. Remember, the ninja wouldn't have known anything about Narukon if it wasn't for the fact that they were in prison with Soto. That is really, really coincidental, and definitely was just to move on the plot. And their escape was also just really weirdly easy. I just think there was just so many problems with this arc, and it just really doesn't work in context, but I don't think back at it and think it's bad. I don't know. This is exactly why I didn't want to talk about it. But let's actually move into the specific ninja when it does come to the season, because there is definitely some interesting things I want to talk about here. For one, I want to talk about Kai. Kai is basically not present within the season whatsoever. He is the first ninja to be taken, and that is just kind of it. His wishes are just kind of within the scope of Kai, and I do think they handle the wishes with him fine enough, but I definitely do think Kai just got completely wasted this time round. He's just kind of along for the ride, and you can kind of tell that they forgot how little Kai actually had to do with the season, because when all the ninja are released from the Jin Blade, Kai actually knows things that he's not actually meant to know. He talks about the Tiger Widow Venom, which is crazy to me because he wasn't around by that point in time. So I do think it's really funny to see that they just didn't really have much to do when it did come to Kai. I think he just was there for the ride, and it's just kind of a shame to see. The next ninja I want to talk about is going to be Cole. Apart from one very weirdly inappropriate joke about women, of all things, okay, Cole, I guess, I'm glad that didn't stick around, he honestly kind of walks out the season pretty good. He actually does become the only ninja that was actually able to circumvent the entirety of the Narukon wish system, which I think is hilarious, may I add. But the thing is that, apart from that, he's just kind of there. He does have some time to shine. I like the dynamic he has got with the ninja, but that's kind of it. He does have some really funny moments, I will say as well. I love the moment where they're on Tiger Widow Island, and Cole predicts when Narukon is going to appear, and he actually gets a punch on him. And I just love the fact that he celebrates it, and he just says that he finally landed one on him. And honestly, just kind of proving why he's my favorite ninja. And I do think towards the end, they kind of got a little bit lazy with him, because in the episode where he does go into the Jin Blade, he just doesn't have the ghost filter on at all during that episode, so cool, I guess. But I do just think we're just looking at a situation where it's just a ninja that had a little bit of time to shine, but just in comparison to what he could have had, it just wasn't a lot. But again, I genuinely think he's the only one that came out relatively fine. Just again, I'm really glad those jokes never stuck around. Then we got Lloyd. Lloyd is another character that did stick around for a fair bit of time within the season, but again, there's just not really too much to actually say about him. One of the more notable things, I guess, is just the fact that he does age up because of his wishes, and I do think that is a fairly interesting concept, which unfortunately they didn't really run all that much with after Lloyd was released on the Sword, but still, it was fun regardless. But he's another one of those characters that has their moments, but also just doesn't really. This is also one of the instances where we get to see Lloyd wearing a fedora, which I do think is really funny, but again, that's just me. But he just feels like he's kind of there. There's not anything overly crazy with him, and he just feels like he is on the level of Cole, where it's just, he's around, he's walked out relatively fine, but that's just kind of because he's one of the ninja that isn't all that notable this time. So, he gets a pass. I just don't really think they thought too much about him this season. Which brings us on to the fourth ninja, Zane. I do honestly think he is one of the biggest instances of a ninja being out of character this season. One of the things about him is that he just kind of acts like I wouldn't expect him to do so. The main way I would honestly describe it is just essentially overconfidence. In his interaction with Narukon, he implies the fact that he knew that Jay had an interaction with the Jin before, but does basically nothing about it. He then has this really weird idea that he can just outsmart Narukon, which I understand in some degree, but at the same time, Zane just wouldn't risk that, I feel like. It just feels like a really strange interaction. And then it just comes through to the end where he just randomly wishes himself away because Pixel was deleted. It just feels like a way to get him out of the story by that point. Of course, he would be grieving Pixel, and that's fair enough, but I just don't think the reaction of wishing it all away would actually be necessary in this moment. Again, just coming across as weirdly out of character. I just don't really like what they did with him here, but apart from that, I guess he's okay. But with Zane done, that brings us to the last two ninja and the most important ones of the lot. The first one I'm going to talk about is Nia, and honestly, I have genuinely struggled on how I feel about Nia in this season. She does do a lot by all accounts, but at the same time, she just doesn't necessarily do much. At the beginning of the season, she's in her whole independent arc, and I absolutely loved it. I think it was really the beginning of the angry Nia that we get to see later on in the show. But the thing is that she was basically just subject the entire time to Jay's really weird actions at the beginning of the season, and that was just honestly a shame. At some point she does get some more time to shine. We get to see her learn air jitsu, which was kind of cool if rushed, but then towards the end of the season it's again just a case of she's just the victim of Narukon. She just is the person who is susceptible to all of his weird actions, and again just didn't really care for it. Scenes like her being forced into the wedding dress just simply made me feel uncomfortable. But the thing is that I do kind of like the Delara instance where she gets possessed. I do think that was relatively cool, and even though the ending, which we will talk about later, is, well, reversed, I do like how they ended it off in the season. It's still at the very least an emotional scene where we did think she was no longer going to be alive. So it's definitely a mixed bag for her. I definitely do think she has her moments, and I am really appreciative of that, but I definitely do feel like there's just so much that could have been better, but that's because of other characters. But let's speak about one of them right now. Of course, it's going to be Jay. Jay is very strange to me in this season, and honestly, I didn't know how I felt about him. Because the thing is that Jay at the beginning of Season 6 just kind of sucks. But towards the end of Season 6, it's probably some of the best characterization we've ever seen for Jay. At the beginning of the season, we get to see him use wishes from Narukon to gain riches, to try and impress Nia, and I do think that almost comes across weird, especially when you realize that in earlier seasons, all Nia has ever said is that she likes Jay when he's himself. So it does feel like he just randomly forgot about this. And stuff like reading a book on how to woo women, I think is just wildly inappropriate. I just really didn't like how he came across towards the beginning, but it does feel like after the events of Tiger Widow Island, they really did change things up. Jay, when he's on Miss Fortune's keep as a prisoner, is absolutely amazing. I love how he resists Narukon whilst just cleaning up the ship. but I also then like later on where he retrieves the ninja and how he leads them into a fight with Narukon. I really do think Jay towards the end is a fantastic character. I have literally no notes about him, it's just it sucks that the first 4 episodes just really feel lackluster in comparison. It's again another instance of just really feeling strange. I honestly do feel like they had 2 separate ideas for Jay, and let's just say one of them was a lot better. So I do think on an overall, he's fine when you take a look back from afar, but I definitely do think those earlier episodes were really compromising when it did come to his character. This is where I should be getting into the villains, and I will in a moment, but there are just a few more things I wanted to talk about in terms of good characters before we do. For one, we're going to talk about Wu. Wu was by far one of the worst things from this season. The thing about him is the fact that he just randomly gets trapped by Narukon. We do have later context on how their interaction went, but apart from that, he just kind of disappears for the season, which I guess feels it in character for Wu because he never prepares the ninja, but it's still just a really weird moment in my opinion. It really just feels like they just didn't want Wu in the season, and I'm honestly just kind of sad by that because how he goes out just really doesn't feel like it should have been the case. Masako is another character that feels quite off for me, because she again just goes and investigates into Narukon without any sort of precaution or anything of the sorts. The thing is that she is a veteran explorer, but she just takes no ambition into trying to manage these mystical artifacts, and again it just gets rid of her. In similar vein of Wu, I think they were just simply trying to get rid of her when it came to the season, but I guess in most, if not all Ninjago seasons, she doesn't really have too much of a consequence. So I'm not really mad at this one, but still it does just feel off. Ronan is also just completely reverted in this season. Season 5 emphasizes this point that the ninja are his friends and they're his allies and they're worth more than money, and it's a really cool arc. But then you come to season 6 and then he's just back to being a villain, just taking payment to hunt down the ninja. And it's just really sad to see, because Ronan could have been a fantastic ally and they could have built off of season 5, but they just quite simply didn't. Again, it was just quite simply to push on the plot and have really cool moments of Ronan doing stuff, but at the cost of all of his character development. Again, it's just really sad to see. And again, in that season he does do better, but again, I just can't help but remember the fact that his whole initial bit of the season is just completely sacrificing everything we knew. And then lastly, we've got Dareth. He is definitely the worst instance of him throughout the entirety of Ninjago. The things that he says in this season are just downright disgusting. And honestly, it's a shame that they did this to the character because of how popular he was. He still is very popular, and after the events of Skybound, he does get a lot better, but the thing is that this season just really sticks out like a sore thumb because of the things that Dareth does say. It's just a massive shame that they wrote him in this sense, and I honestly don't understand why they did it. But regardless of that, they did, and I'm just honestly quite sad to see it. But at the end of the day, I'm just gonna have to kind of ignore it, because again, like I said, it's just a really weird one-off, and I'm doing the same for Cole in this manner, so it's a massive shame. I'm not happy with what they did, but hopefully we can just forget it ever happened. But those are all of the good characters I wanted to talk about when it did come to Skybound, and it is definitely a mixed bag. It does feel like every character walked out either with basically nothing to do or with just a really bad red mark on their ledger. It just feels really strange, and honestly it makes me question the writing for this season, because in my opinion this is the only season where all the characters come across like this. And honestly, I'm just kind of sad to see it, especially considering that there is a lot of charm to Skybound, which again is just kind of ruined by these moments. But yeah, those are the good. Let's talk about the bad. That being the Sky Pirates themselves, and honestly, I was quite happy with this army for the most part. Of course, maybe apart from their captain. But in terms of the actual crew themselves, I actually really did enjoy them. I enjoyed how we got so many scenes of them interacting with each other, and the brotherhood that they do all share. And honestly, their interactions with the ninja was also pretty good. Considering that they are just Sky Pirates by all accounts, they do actually put up a really good fight when it does come to the ninja. And I just think that was really fun to actually see, and I do think the individual members all do have their time to shine. I like the sneaky nature of Monkey Wrench. I like the fact that he's always just sneaking around, getting the answers, and figuring out what to do in accordance with that new information. So many scenes of just Ninja not realizing that he's just stood around. I really do like that, and it definitely does fit with the character. I do like the fact that he just runs around, does what he needs to do, and just doesn't really care, and does kind of still put up a good fight. So it is just fun for what it is, and he definitely is a valued member of the crew. Doubloon is also pretty fun and unique. I like the fact that he definitely does stand out in a lot of ways. He's also fairly mysterious, because he is one of the few villains that know Spinjitzu, he doesn't talk, he has two faces. Of course, all of these things have been somewhat explained, but there's still just a lot of questions around him. But I like the fact that he puts up a really good fight. His fight with Jay in the lighthouse is absolutely amazing. It just feels like he has a really solid presence, and I definitely do like the fact that he did have moments within the season to really shine. It's a shame that he left the season how he did, but at the end of the day, he definitely did still earn a place in my heart. Honestly, I also never realized how much I actually like Dogshank. I think she's also just another very fun character. I like how she has a really fun moment, and again, she's an absolute beast when it does come to a fight scene. I love how strong she is. She commands basically every scene she's in. Again, going back to the lighthouse, when she's skydiving into the lighthouse itself, you really do feel like the fight is about to change, because she really does have that swaying power when it does come to those interactions. And I like that she does have a soft side, feeling all nice and soft when it does come to the wedding, helping Nia with her dress, and then obviously in the end helping the ninja. I just really like those interactions, and I just feel like she has a lot of character that just wasn't really explored, but they definitely did do their best, and I'm happy to see it. My GOAT Clancy as well. Honestly, I really do like Clancy. He is up there in my opinion when it does come to Serpentine. I like his interactions. I like how he is just quite scared initially in the season, but then as we go further along, he stands up to Narukon. He stands up to Flintlock. He does all of these amazing things, and he helps the ninja in the end. He sacrifices everything to stop Narukon, and I absolutely love it. Honestly, he has just been one of my favorites throughout the entirety of Skybound. He just has really fun moments, and I really like his interactions with the rest of the crew. He's just kind of there to vibe, and he's just so innocent. And he doesn't even use his wishes. He could have had things from Narukon, but he simply chose not to. Of course, Narukon exploits us in the end, which is just very sad to see, but still, Clancy does do his own thing, and I absolutely love it. I should bring up Delara as well. I actually didn't have her in the script, but yeah, I will get into her as well. She's not really much of a character because we barely get to see her, but I do like the moments that she does have. When she does possess Nia, you can really feel the difference between the characters. And I like the fact that she does genuinely seem to love Narukon, and she is actually really loyal to him as well. And I will say this, it seems like Narukon did feel the same, which is quite cool to see. But I do like that she did have some sort of moment within the season itself, and I do like how she did influence the final fight, because the ninja just didn't want to hurt Nia. That fight could have been very different if Nia just simply wasn't on the battlefield. So again, I like that she did have impact this season, and I just kind of like the interaction she has with Narukon. Flintlock just has pure aura. There's no two ways about it. I love all of the moments that he has throughout the season. I love when he's just nonchalant, just going around asking Clancy to clean his guns. I really do like those little bits. I like how he just slowly but surely also succumbs to what is essentially just realizing Narukon's manipulation, trying to start a mutiny. I think that was also pretty cool, and in the end helping the ninja I think is amazing. And I do think the line of "my shot is yours to keep" is a really good way to summarize how he truly does feel about his former captain. I just really like how you can see Flintlock just progress throughout the entirety of the season, and I really do like the fact that he just gets to defy the odds. He can't shoot, well, he can will it so because Narukon doesn't have that strength over him. Honestly, just really good stuff all around. And then lastly is Narukon. He is of course one of the most divisive aspects of this season. For very good reason though. The thing is the people who have identified the fact that what he does during the season is just downright deplorable is very much correct. He is genuinely a villain. Some of the things he does, like assaulting Nia, is just simply not okay. And honestly, I'm very shocked that this made its way into the show itself. His interactions, his moments just feel horrid, and I just don't like it whatsoever, and honestly kind of ruins him as a villain for me, which is a shame because there is some really cool stuff when it does come to Narukon as well. Narukon has this whole outsmart the ninja instead of overpower them. How he utilizes wishes I think is absolutely amazing. How he exploits the ninja for certain aspects to get them into the blade that he wants them to be in. I absolutely love those moments, and I think they're some of the best instances of his character. But again, they're just ruined by scenes of him just interacting with Nia weirdly, and his strange moments with Jay. I just really don't like it, and definitely does ruin him as a character for me. And again, I'm going to be fair and praise the good moments, but I have to acknowledge those bad ones, and it's honestly one of the reasons why I just don't like to think about him. It's just really weird and just again makes me feel oddly uncomfortable. So for what it's worth, I do think he has got moments that are really cool. They're just really watered down by the bad. But I do think on and overall, the Sky Pirates were just a very fascinating army. Having a mutiny, having characters that come onto the ninja side, have characters that are ultimately exiled for basically doing nothing. And like I said, their interactions, the brotherhood, the bond that they share, and how they actually do put up a fight definitely has left a lasting impact when it does come to the army. I honestly really do appreciate what they got to do with them, and it's a shame that we haven't really gotten to see them too much beyond the scope of Season 6. Hey, maybe one day they'll make a cameo appearance, but I just really don't know because of the divisive nature of Skybound. But yeah, I do think they are pretty solid, and I do appreciate them for what they are worth. But with all of those characters done, there is just one more thing I want to do or talk about before I do end off the video, and that is of course the ending of the season. The ending of Skybound has become one of the most infamous aspects of the show because what it does is essentially just revert everything that ever happened. All that canonically happened from season 6 is basically the first 15 minutes of episode 1. That is literally it, and that is just a massive shame because all of this time is basically for nothing, and it does call into question if it's even needed when it does come to the overall look of Ninjago. Well, the thing is that it does matter. The season, in a way, has happened. The impact has lasted on certain characters. Jay and Nia are both different characters because of Skybound. So, it happened by all accounts. But yeah, having things reversed I do think is a fairly interesting way to go about it. Honestly, I can't see another way they could have done it considering the state of Ninjago by the end of the show. But the thing is that I just really never thought too much of it. I never thought of it as ruining the show in any sort of way. I never thought of it ruining season 6 in any sort of way. And honestly, I think anyone who thinks that the entirety of the season is pointless and horrible because of the ending just didn't really appreciate the fact that the characters are different because of the season. So I do think it does have an impact, but not in the traditional sense. And that is why I honestly don't mind it. But I honestly will say I understand why some people are frustrated because you could view it as a waste of your time. But I don't think that is something I could ever agree with, because it does have some sort of value to it. Regardless on how you feel about the ending, it's undeniable that there are instances of Ninjago later down the line that was influenced by the event of Skybound. For example, in Dragon's Rising, Nia is initially quite hesitant on Arakawa, and that is because he's a Jin and her experience with Jins has been quite sour. Those impacts are very real, very lasting, and that is, I think, the overall point when it does come to Skybound. Even though it didn't happen in most of people's minds, it still happened, and it did still shape characters for years to come. And I think that's where I want to open it into my overall. I think when I take a look back at Skybound in a modern eye, I can acknowledge the fact that there are so many things wrong with it, and so many things that just really didn't age all that well, and shouldn't have even have been there at the time. But I do think the season still does have a lot of charm to it. I do still think there are really cool and really fun moments, and just a lot of reason to actually go back and take a look at the season. Again, for the visual aspect alone, That is honestly a fantastic thing to see, and definitely does still hold up to this very day. And again, like I said, when you look at characters like Jay and Narukon, yes, I can acknowledge that some of the things they do are absolutely deplorable in this season, but there are moments that are fantastic and definitely do define the character for me. Again, going back to the aspect of Jay actually locking in towards the end of the season and having some of his best characterization, and then Narukon outsmarting the ninja and doing his best to actually take advantage of their own abilities for his own gain. I really do like those moments, and I just really appreciate what it truly is. I honestly am just very happy with what we got in terms of those aspects. It's just when you look at it and you realize that there's bad as well, it definitely does show why it's divisive. So I do think the best way to summarize this season for me is going to be fine, but flawed. I think that's the best way for me to really try and put forth my opinion on it, and honestly that will probably change by the time this video comes out. But I do think regardless of that, I want to know what you guys think of Skybound. I do ask that everyone remain civil in the comment section down below though, because this is definitely one that could cause some debate. But I do want to know what you think of Skybound. Do you just acknowledge the good parts of it, or can you only think of the bad parts of it? I would love to know what you think, because it is genuinely difficult to determine. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, I honestly was really not liking the idea of talking about this season, but I'm glad I got my opinions across now, and it finally means I can talk about Day of the Departed again and Hands of Time. But that's just me. But I will say, on an overall, like I said, I'm definitely very mixed on Skybound. But I don't think it's completely irredeemable, but I don't think some of the things that they did should be ignored. But thank you very much for watching the video, and I do hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider subscribing. I love discussing Ninjago with more people, and if you do want to support the channel any further, which you do not have to, you could always become a channel member and join the legends on screen. Each of you, your support means the absolute world to me, and honestly there's so many more of you than I could have ever expected, so I cannot thank you enough. But like I said, that's about it for today, and take care. Okay,